He needs to go. It's getting beyond ridiculous now that he's still in the job at the time we're recording.
I just think Steve Bruce probably holds them back a little bit and gets them playing in one way that is just far too easy to defend against.
It seemed like it was coming, but I don't think it was really a surprise.
But he has shown that it can be clinical this season. And Luton create a lot of chances. They create so many chances.
Of course, Justin Peach was going to say Carlton Morris. I could have put my house on that one.
£15 million at Aston Bolonga, £6.5 million on Ashley Fletcher, £9 million on Martin Braithwaite. So just imagine if there was a bit more frugality and a bit more insight into the signings. I think that Middlesbrough team could have been one of the best. I really do think that.
If Bobby Zamora had just put that chance wide, it could have been a completely different story for Derby County as a football club. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Stopwatch. It's of course the topical championship show with a little twist. It's 5 topics, a 2-minute timer and 2 hosts. We're Ryan and Justin from the Second Tier podcast. Let's get right into it.
Back onto managerial changes. What about Chris Wilder's Boro exit? Was it a surprise and where should Boro go next?
It seemed like it was coming, but I don't think it was really a surprise per se, because it seemed quite obvious, according to many reports, that the relationship between Chris Wilder and the club hierarchy had just completely deteriorated. And this was one where it was the right thing for all parties wanted. Yeah. Chris Wilder will get another job sooner rather than later, I'm sure. And Middlesbrough needed a change because things weren't getting any better under Chris Wilder. Where should the club go next? Difficult to say. They definitely need to get a head coach in, someone who's happy to work with a director of football, because that's one of the reasons why Chris Wilder wasn't too happy with his position at Middlesbrough. I'd personally hang around to see what's going on with the Steve Cooper situation at Forest. If that doesn't amount to anything, then I go for Carlos Corberán, the ex-Huddersfield boss, because he worked under a head coach there and is a fantastic coach. Justin, what do you think?
Yeah, on the coach's side of things, I think for me, the next boss has got to be someone who can coach the team, who can transition youngsters into the first team and build upon the solid groundwork that's been put in by Wilder. There's foundations of a really good side there, but they need a manager who's brave in possession, but can keep them solid as well. I think the obvious candidates of Rob Edwards and Carlos Corberán, as I say, are obvious. But why not go for a Kieran McKenna at Ipswich, who has proved to evolve that team, improve the team, and work under expectations, and is a good young and up-and-coming manager. Stephen Schumacher at Plymouth really excites me as well. I don't think it will be long before he's in the championship job.
No, both very interesting shouts, Justin. I like your wild card options. It's time for the Steve Bruce section of the show, Justin. Now, at the time of recording, things always change very quickly in the championship, as we've seen over the past couple of weeks. Steve Bruce hasn't been sacked, but that may be a different story. Come the weekend, at the same time, he may hang around. So who really knows what's going on with that? But do you think Steve Bruce should be sacked?
Yes. I think it's an easy answer based purely on form. The performances haven't been terrible, but as we know in football, you live off your results, and it's a cliche, but it's absolutely true. But if you go the amount of games West Brom have, firstly without a win, the last 2 defeats as well, post international break, have been really poor, and for me they're a little bit one-dimensional. They're too reliant on getting crosses into the box. They don't utilise the talent throughout the pitch enough, I don't think. The likes of John Swift hasn't really hit a gear where he can really excel yet. And I still think Dean Garner is untapped in a sense. And same with Jed Wallace. I just think Steve Bruce probably holds them back a little bit and gets them playing in one way that is just far too easy to defend against. And I think that's what the issues are coming for West Brom. And as well as that, concentration at the back is terrible.
Yeah, I completely agree. He needs to go. It's getting beyond ridiculous now that he's still in the job at the time we're recording. You look at, if considering we've had 8 or 9 managers go in the championship so far this season, if in an alternative universe we had the exact same results, but none of those managers had gone, you'd still say Steve Bruce is the one who's deserved to go the most. There have been other managers who have been sacked for a lot less this season. So I don't really see the point of persisting with Steve Bruce at this point. I can't really see an argument for him hanging around, really, because sure, performances haven't been as bad as results suggest, but at the same time, West Brom should be winning games. They've got one win on the board from 12 games. It's abysmal. It's an abysmal record, and Steve Bruce has had an abysmal record in his whole time at the Hawthorns, hasn't he? It's something like 8 wins from, I think, 31 games. That's appalling, really, considering the players there. So, without a doubt, he's got to go. Unfortunately, I think he is a good bloke, a good footballing man, but ultimately this hasn't worked, and it's time for a change for all parties, really, isn't it? Justin, what's the next topic?
Oscar Estupiñán is back amongst the goals finally. So, who is your favourite to clinch the Golden Boot this season?
I think it's really difficult to say at the moment. Of course, we were spoiled last season with Alexander Mitrovic, weren't we? After it became very apparent after the first 10 games of the season that he was going to run away with the Golden Boot, or at least he was going to be right up there. Now I'm looking at 3 names in particular, maybe 4. Estupiñán's one of them, and a lot will depend on how he takes to the new manager. I think the fact they'll have a new manager bounce may see him continue his goal scoring ways. Teemu Pukki is always in the conversation because it's Teemu Pukki. But the one I'm going to go with is Joel Pirot at Swansea. Now, he has hit a bit of a bad patch all of a sudden. I say a bad patch. I think it's only 2 or 3 games where he's failed to score. But at the same time, he is a top quality goal scorer at this level and gets plenty of service at Swansea. And that's only been more apparent in recent weeks with the likes of Ryan Manning and Sorinola on the wings, providing plenty of service to him. And then he's also got the likes of Encham, etc., behind him. But he's a fantastic striker. He's got a hatload of goals last season, and you'd have thought he'd only get better and improve on that amount. And that's why he's been linked with moves to Premier League clubs, because he's still a young striker. He doesn't look like a young lad, but he is. So I'd back him to beat his tally from last season and consistently tick over with goals over the season, as opposed to other strikers who are in contention for it, who I think may hit spits and spats, whereas Pirro will get just one every 2 games or something like that, if you see what I mean, Justin.
Yeah, Pirro is... I mean, I checked the data on this, and Pirro's massively underperforming compared to last season in terms of his shot conversion and taking chances, as we know. So for me, I've got to rule him out. But then again, he has got that potential to really kick it up a gear and get consistent. It's just when that comes, it is a difficult one. Obviously, like you, I've got a couple of names in the pipeline. Estupiñán is one of them. He's got the best conversion rate, or the joint best conversion rate in the league at 36%. The other one I would suggest is, this will be no surprise to anyone, is Carlton Morris. He's got the potential to do it. I've talked about his attributes as a number 9, but he has shown that he can be clinical this season. And Luton create a lot of chances. They create so many chances. So his conversion rate should improve as Luton start to improve as well. It's not as good as Estupiñán's, but I don't think Luton and Morris have hit top gear yet. The only thing that might let him down is it's more of the team ethic at Luton. So in that sense, the goals were more likely to be shared around the squad than flowing it all through Carlton Morris. They play 2 up front on the regular. That might let him down a little bit. But Estupiñán, Carlton Morris, as you say, Pukki, and Josh Sargent as well, which we haven't mentioned, will all be up there. Certainly all be up there.
Of course, Justin Peach was going to say Carlton Morris. I could have put my house on that one. Finally, second tier retro time. This is the part of the show where we look back on all the best and possibly worst from Championship history. And the question is this week, what is the biggest what could have been in Championship history? Really like this question. Justin, what are you going for?
I'm going with a team for this, and I'm going with the Boro team from 2017-2018, the one that just came down from the Premier League post-Aitor Karanka area. It's supposed to be a new chapter for Boro. They went with Gary Monk as manager, which arguably, looking back, was a mistake. Good young manager at the time, but a mistake bringing him in, and then the baggage that came with it. And the reason why I'm picking them is because the amount of money they had, the solid squad they had, so the money they had to spend, the money they ended up spending on players, and as I say, the solid squad that they had. You know, if we look at the squad for starters, Daniel Ayala, George Friend, Patrick Bamford, and of course Adama Traore, all top players, and they didn't need much adding to it. and they end up throwing £15 million at Assombalonga, £6.5 million on Ashley Fletcher, £9 million on Martin Braithwaite. So just imagine if there was a bit more frugality and a bit more insight into the signings, maybe a bit more homework, and not just throwing money at it. I think that Middlesbrough team could have been one of the best. I really do think that. And now we're looking back and thinking, right, that set them back years to the point where it took Neil Warnock 18 months to get sorted.
It's interesting, Justin. My biggest what could have been was the first team that came to my head. It's the Derby County team from the 13-14 season who lost in the playoff final to QPR thanks to that Bobby Zamora goal. Now, many Derby fans will tell you that's the best team to have not been promoted from the Championship. And I'm not going to disagree with that statement. I think there were other contenders, but I'm not going to argue against it. You had the likes of Will Hughes, Jeff Hendrick, Craig Bryson, Richard Keogh in their pumps, their absolute top form, and they were all clicking at the same time under Steve McLaren, playing beautiful football. And then Bobby Zamora dashed all of those hopes and meant they were in the Championship for what ended up being the foreseeable future. Now, it's a big what could have been because it was such a talented team, but also what followed afterwards. Mel Morris took over, and that led to the banter years, as they're known around Derby, of overspending on terrible players, managers being sacked for very little, and eventually ending up in administration for Derby County. So if Bobby Zamora had just put that chance wide, it could have been a completely different story for Derby County as a football club. But there we were. Who knows what would have happened, eh? But there we go. This has been the Stopwatch, and it's been another episode wrapped up by us, the second tier boys. We'll be back again next Thursday for another roundup of all the latest Championship topics for us to discuss. Please let us know in the comment section below any of the questions that you have, any thoughts on particularly what could have been. I'm really interested to see what you guys have to say about that, but please subscribe for more content like this, and of course like the video if you enjoyed it. But we've been the Second Tier Podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Second Tier Pod. I'm Brian Dilks1. That's Justin Peach 27, and thank you for watching.